Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I am, of course, Nick McDaniel, and as always, I am joined by Bowman Byron.
Hello, and welcome to a special edition of the show. It's question time. Once again, but a spin on questions. But let's get our business out of the way first.
That's right, man. Look, we always appreciate anybody who's listening, watching, all that good stuff. But if you are a listener or a watcher, right, we always tell you, man, join wherever your platform that you normally listen to us, watch us is, especially over at youtube.com. Just give us a search, Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. We always tell you, man, like it, subscribe to it, turn on your notifications. You don't ever want to miss an episode. But if you're even, more into it and you want the extras, the daily mind dumps that I'm doing, all that other stuff, get the show early, become a member there, man. Sign up for the different tiers, get the different stuff. Man, we greatly appreciate it. It's always, helps run the show, man. And anybody and everybody that joins, and like I said, we know the podcast listeners, man. Make sure you're subscribing there as well, so your downloads just hit every time it drops. And then, those reviews, all that good shit, that all matters, right?
Yes.
So
yes, we do appreciate every single one of them. Thank you.
That's right. This week's episode, Myron, you brought it up. Yes. Take two. We're going to say it's a little bit different. We get these questions in the mailbag, and sometimes it's, we get so many that we're like, oh, we'll push that one to next week, and then the next week, and then the next week, and it kind of falls, because we're going through trying to cover, because here's the thing, the current stuff you have to cover then, or it's not current anymore. Yes. Whereas some of the questions are like, well, they're kind of evergreen. We can push it. And the next thing I know, I had this mound of like list type question, like top 3, top 5, this kind of type of question. And I was like, hey, Myron, we've kind of piled up a stack here. Why don't we just, do something different? And we're going to dive into top 5, top 3 lists, whatever the question was asked. That's what we're going to go into, right?
Yes. And we're not putting them in order. These are our choices. So that's the way it's going to be. In doing research for this, there's a top 10 list of every single thing in the world on the internet. 3/4 of the internet is top 10 list. The rest is pornography. And speaking of pornography, I need to give you all a warning. If you are talking to Sunny on Twitter, Tamara Sitch, it's not her because she's in jail and her boyfriend is running it. So those aren't pics of her. Well, they are pics of her, but they're old. So save your money till well, she's not going to get out of jail. So never mind.
She'll get out someday. You never know, right? But anyways, to the point, if you agree with our list, you disagree with our list, we always share, we love for you to share your opinions. tappedoutpod@gmail.com. But man, without further ado, Myron, man, let's dive right in and start knocking these lists out for them.
Yes. Carmelo from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, a wonderful place, home of WrestleCade. Who would you have on your top 5 tag teams of all time?
Okay. Key again, Myron, we're going to remind everybody, we did not do these in order. We just because we started throwing them out. And here, it's hard it's easy when you do your top 5, like by yourself.
Yes.
And put them in order. And I say easy, that's a wink in there because it's not always easy. But when it's 2 people trying to put top 5 together, it gets a little more complicated. So we were like, hey, let's just throw the list together and, who you got?
Who do we have? One of my favorite tag teams of all time, I used to cosplay as Bubba Ray, the Dudleys.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, most decorated tag team of all time, right?
Yes.
Got to be
some of the most epic matches. Okay? They were in some of the most epic matches of all time in their tenure in WWE. They set standards in ECW, and they went on to basically run TNA. Now Devon is a producer. Is he still a producer?
Yep, I think maybe. He may not be there anymore.
Well, Bubba Ray's he's on the Busted Open Radio, and that's one of my favorite programs. I love his opinions on things. Yeah. So the Dudley Boys, great tag team. What are you going to go with next?
Well, I'm going to cheat in the spirit of expedition. The next 2 are kind of tied hand in hand. When you talk about the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express, that would be our, they're on our list as well. Consummate tag teams when it, and listen, yes, guys, some of this is going to lean to our childhood and our, at times some of our, where we hold our heart dear to. So those two, like I would argue, we've argued in the past, we've done list shows of tag teams,
Mm-hmm.
and Rock and Rolls are like number one. I mean, they're there.
And I think of all of them, Stan Lane's the only one I don't have the autograph of all members. And I have met all members of both teams.
Yes.
I have to get Stan Lane's autograph next time he signs.
Yep.
And see, I didn't get a lot of them growing up because of our cable television situation. I started listening to Jim Cornette's podcast, so I started going back and watching the matches on YouTube and whatever they had on WWE. Wow. Such heat, such fire, such great babyface comebacks. I think they basically set the standard for tag team. These two teams set the standards for tag team wrestling.
Yeah.
You know,
another team on there, man. You got. Here's the thing. I think the Freebirds don't get a lot of love. I think they deserve more love. I mean, obviously, they to me were kind of like the beginning of the popularity. I know there were more, but the popularity of Six Man kind of was there with the Freebirds, Von Erichs. So that's your kind of your big team. But I think a lot of people sleep on the Freebirds, but they would be on my list.
Well, they are one of those teams that got the entire rock and roll thing that WWE was doing outside of WWE.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of got their gimmicks together. They were hated, but they were multi-platform and out there in front of everyone. So that was really smart of them. And Michael Hayes still producing for the WWE.
Then when it comes to, I mean, listen, I always say it's hard to argue with the Road Warriors. A lot of people will call them the best, tag team of all time. Just mass destruction of tag teams. So I don't think you can make a tag team list without them.
I hate we had to leave the Legion of Doom off this list.
That is the Road Warriors, but yes.
Oh, yes. Okay, so I grew up with the Legion of Doom, watching them on WWE.
Right. And I grew up Road Warriors and NWA and a fly, so exactly. So, yes. But that's that, so that would be our five. Dudley's, Midnight Express, Freebirds, Rock and Roll Express, and Road Warriors. That's what I would say. But, look, that's open for debate. And obviously that's what we love about list shows, right?
Yes.
So, what you got next, man?
The next one. Cole from Culpeper, Virginia. What are your top 5 finishers of all time? Now, this was fun.
Yeah.
This was fun. This was something we went back and forth, and you can't see the notes right now, but Nick would type something and erase it, and type one and erase it, because he was trying to shove in all these different things. And I'm going to let him start, because this is probably one of his favorites.
Oh, the stunner, hands down. I mean, I always thought, because I thought that was like a definitive end to a match.
Yes.
Like, yeah, and I know people kicked out eventually, but I mean, like, but I like moves where, like, bam, that hits, the match is over. You know, that's kind of what I like, and that's what a finisher is, by the way.
It finishes things.
Yeah, exactly.
Tag team finisher, the 3D from the Dudleys. Devon, get the tables. Oh, it was so good. I love that one. I love to see the way they coordinated and did that so well.
Did you know nobody ever kicked out of that till finally? I think it was Alex Shelley from the Motor City Machine Guns in Impact finally did it.
Jesus.
I think he was the first person to kick out of that. That's crazy.
That's a hell of a run.
Yeah, pretty wild. Then here's one that it's going to come out of left field. I always laughed. I was always a big mark for the Heart Punch.
Oh, it's scary.
Just because, come on, think about it. It's got to be one of probably the least, as far as for the worker, right? But you're thinking, oh my God, he hit him so hard, he messed his heart up, and it stopped, so he got beat.
Well, Oxberger killed what's his name with it. The guy that was running the Atlanta territory for a while.
But it's crazy. I was always a fan of it, but anyway.
Yes, Gunkel. Yes, Gunkel's the guy I killed with it. Well, he had a heart attack in the locker room afterwards, so it's a technicality. I loved the tombstone pile driver, and then Taker would lay your arms across your chest, and it was done.
Same thing, though, right?
Spooky would happen. Yes,
because it's boom, it's over. Like when he hit it, you always assumed it was over.
Yes.
Now my other one. Here's the funny thing is, Sweet Chin Music was always one of mine. And I just absolutely despise the fact that modern wrestling has bastardized the
They spam the super kick.
Yeah.
Just super kicks everywhere. Everybody gets super kicked. It takes like 10 or 12 at a time.
Yeah.
And you go. We went to a show this weekend, and you can't, even on a great show, everybody wants to do the super kick. You know, everybody wants to do a super kick. It was great. It was a great move, but people, just because you can, don't mean you should.
Correct. But or if you're going to, I mean, here's my thing: the Sweet Chin Music was a finisher, and if you're using it and it's not a finisher, that means you're not really good at giving it. Anyway. That's just my take. So, but I was really excited and looking forward to this next question, though.
Clay from Lincoln, Nebraska. What are your favorite territories from the territory era? This is so fun.
Yeah,
this was so fun. I grew up with 2 wrestling options on television since we had no cable out in the farms of Alabama. And I watched the hell out of some Continental, Southeastern, the Fullers. Oh, man, that's where I got, the WWE product was pretty sanitized at the time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It was a little wasn't as hardcore.
It was homogenized is the word they like to use
homogenized.
these days.
But when you turned on Continental, you never know what you were going to see. I told Kevin Sullivan when I got his autograph, I said, you scared the hell out of me as a child. And he did scare the hell out of me as a child, because that wrestling scared me. Okay? The heels were evil. The baby faces were so good. It was my favorite.
Yeah, man. I mean, but I think there's a trend you're going to notice of all of our choices. Yes. It's very regionally biased. But guess what, guys? Because that's where we grew up, right?
Yeah.
But kind of along those same lines of Continental, there was, Mid-South.
Yes.
Here's the thing, in my personal taste, Mid-South, was the, especially when it was Mid-South Power Pro, that other show. So I was like, they were kind of on the harder, edgier, stuff.
Yes.
But then we also have lists like Memphis, where, how many times when you see a storyline that we write out, they're like, dude, that is so Memphis.
Yes.
It's wacky. It's, it was funny. It's great storytelling, but they would do some weird, wacky stuff on top of that.
Yes. And that was made it entertaining. Yeah. And I'm blessed by the W Network, now on Peacock, that I can go back and watch this stuff. Okay. Just sit and watch this stuff. It's so, you get burned out on the new product, go watch that. But right now the new product's pretty good, so I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, for
the time. You grew up in Florida, though, Nick.
Oh yeah, dude. I grew up, Eddie Graham booking, Dusty down there booking with him, Bob. Like I said, I grew up on Dusty in Florida. Kevin Sullivan, the Devil, Kevin Sullivan, Purple Haze, Sir Oliver Humperdinck, Blackjack Mulligan, Barry. I saw so many cool people get their starts. Like Sluger, on and on and on. Florida was a greght territory to watch growing up. It's where Dusty got his first shot. It's where his first title, so his world title. So, I was a big fan. Obviously, growing up there as a kid.
And some of the greatest talent ever circulated through World Class. I mean, if you listen to Cornette talk about the time they were out there, and just about, oh God, it's so. I could listen to those stories forever, listen to those stories forever.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the Von Erichs that grew to heights, that was so hot. They were doing, and it's funny. There was a similar story that I want to tell, but I know we got to roll because we got so many of these, but World Class was on fire to the point that they were doing shows in the Cotton Bowl. People were like, well, they only sold this, and it wasn't a sellout. They only sold this many. I'm like, but the buildings they ran. I had the same conversation about SummerSlam. It was in the Nashville. They only sold 40,000. There was a whole section tarped off. I'm like, it was 40-something thousand seats. Filled. I'm like, you can't fit that in an arena show. So if margin of cost isn't there, anyway. But yeah, but the Von Erichs in that the Freebirds who we talked about back in the tag team question, just that grew at the heights that nobody probably could have ever imagined. It was absolutely on fire, but absolutely on fire.
Going to wrestling.
Exactly. That's where we get that from. Thank God. One of the great contributions. But speaking of one of our contributions, we want to, introduce you to our friends over at Athletic Greens. Mm-hmm. Our next partner has a product I use literally every day. I started taking AG1 because I wanted more energy and I wanted to see what was all the hype about. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, even aging. I personally use it because when I started this keto fasting diet I'm on, I was worried about the energy I was going to have. Not now. It supports better sleep quality, recovery, mental clarity, even alertness. By the way, it's cheaper than getting all the different supplements that's in this thing. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 five-star reviews and even recommended by professional athletes. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient and daily nutrition. It's one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements that you're looking to look out for your health. So to make it easy for you, Athletics Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is visit their website at athleticgreens.com/emerging. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/emerging to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, brother. Well, let's keep it rolling, man. I mean, we got a bunch of stuff, like I said. We're going to zip through these as quick as we can, but it's a lot of good meat on the bone here. So what we got up next, man?
Troy from Sunrise, Florida asked the question, what are your top, or who are your top 5 managers of all time? Well, number one, never any argument between the two of us over.
No.
And that's the only one I'm going to give a number on. Bobby Heenan is the greatest manager of all time.
Yeah, I agree with you there. We that was funny because when we did that one, we didn't even have to blink. It was funny. Like I said, you read the question. I was typing it in, and then we were like, Bobby Heenan, number 1. Yeah. Okay, I was like, then who else? Then we started doing the rest of the list.
And if you ask another guy on the list, he'll tell you the same thing. Jim Cornette.
Oh yeah, lots of them. I mean, lots of people will sit there and tell you that like it's not even like close, and they all like it's Bobby and then everybody else. So, but listen, you brought Cornette up, right? He's
yes.
Look, he belongs on the list. All things current aside, and all of the controversies he's involved in. Yeah, he's got to be on your list. I mean,
yes.
That's just my take.
Yes,
and and I'll double up on it, man, and go ahead and say like I think that there's a guy currently still doing it that's on that list, and that's Paul Heyman, because he's been doing it forever, it seems like.
Yes, he has, all the way from the ECW days. Before that, remember when he brought the original Midnight Express in to face Jim Cornette?
Well, dude, he was in, he had the Dangerous Alliance and the AWA. Yeah. Even prior to all of that. So that's what I mean. He goes back a long, long way.
So he's the only person working that worked the territories.
Let me ask you this, because I hate getting sidebar, because I keep telling you to speed up, and then I'm going to sidebar on something, right? The Dangerous Alliance in WCW. That was Austin, Rude, Zbyszko, Arn Anderson. I think Bobby Eaton maybe was in there. I think Sherry Martel was in there. If the Horsemen aren't around, is that the greatest faction to roll through WCW?
Yes.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was sitting there thinking about that. But who else you got on your list, man?
Well, I can't go and talk about managers without talking about Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart still, oh man, he could get the heat with the microphone or the megaphone, whatever you call it. The megaphone. He worked Memphis. He worked WWE. He worked everywhere else. He was so good. Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart was somebody I grew up with, much like Bobby Heenan. Man, the memories.
Yeah, I mean, he always had his heart, the stable. I mean, he had obviously the Hart Foundation, but he always had other people rotating through. And here's one that we didn't waffle on it, but it was kind of odd that when we said it, it was like, because it was a man of two careers almost.
Uh-huh.
So you had, so it's Percy Pringle / Paul Bear.
Yes.
Because I was a fan of Percy, all the way back into his Southern days and World Class, etc. But then you're also talking like, okay, well, then he went up north and he became Taker's manager forever. And that's kind of his real claim, right? Is Taker. Yeah. Think about this. And really in WWE, it was essentially Taker, Kane, and Mankind. That essentially was his, but that was essentially the core of his thing. And to me, that would still put him on my 5.
All Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Two careers, able to draw heat, even in the cartoon era, with the guys in masks and the brothers with the burnt face. Oh, man. That was, love watching him. I love watching him as a kid. And then discovering his Percy Pringle as I got older,
Yeah, Percy's definitely on that list for sure. So there you go, man. Our list: Bobby Heenan, Paul Heyman, Jim Cornette, Jimmy Hart, and Percy Pringle / Paul Bear.
Yes.
That's our 5 managers. Let us know again, man. If you disagree, you can feel free to argue, right? tappedoutpod@gmail.com. That's what we always tell you.
Yes.
And while you're pondering that thought, we're going to roll into the next question.
Dwayne from Evanston, Illinois wants to know, what are your top 5 commentary teams of all time?
So here's the blasphemy. So everybody says JR and Jerry Lawler, right? That's got to be on the top 5, and I 100% agree. I don't put it at 1. Most people do. If I was doing a list, I don't put it at 1. But that's, we decided we weren't going to put them in number orders and things like that. We will just kind of go.
Well, they were lucky to be working at a time when wrestling was big, at a time when wrestling was tremendous and over the top, and they could do that commentary, and they could yell and scream about puppies, and it's so many of my memories come from listening to those guys.
We're not saying they're not great.
No.
I'm just saying they're not. I didn't find them at number 1. But then again, that's just my opinion. So what the hell does that matter, right?
Yes.
So,
Gordon Soley and vodka apparently was a very popular combination all over the place, and he did Continental. And when he talked about solar plexuses and stuff, he was the voice of wrestling to me growing up. He was the guy. But when I would flip over the other channel, who would I see? Who was the WE team that you talk about?
Well, there's a couple that we had on our list, man. Listen, Gorilla and Jesse.
Oh, that was a good team.
They were, I think people sleep on Gorilla and Jesse. Because here's the thing, let's go in the pair, and I'm going to cheat. Because Gorilla and Heenan are the one everybody gives the nod to. And by the way, I would agree with that.
Me too.
But so think about that. On our top 5 list, Gorilla Monsoon is on 2 of them.
Yes.
His with Jesse and his with Bobby Heenan. That's an odd one. And the sad part was we almost had Heenan on another list because we were considering Shivani and Heenan.
Yes. Definitely.
But we went a different direction for a lot of reasons, and I think it goes back because it was one of our favorite territories.
What about the one of the deans of wrestling commentary, the guy that called Memphis?
Right, that's what I'm talking about. Lance Russell and Dave Brown, right? They're one of our favorite territories, hence why we love, come on, Jerry. That was always, or whatever, whoever the heel was, come on, Jeff, blah, blah, blah. It was always just funny. And it was funny because when you have stuff like Dave Brown worked local TV there.
Yeah.
Like he was like the weather guy or something, I think it was what it was like. And so it added so much credibility that the people believe, like, well, if he's a weatherman, he's got to be like calling it a legit sport, right? That's what you kind of got the vibe off of him.
You'll never get that again. Never get that again.
So,
man,
our top 5 commentary teams. Look, we got Jim Ross, Jerry Lawler, Lance Russell, Dave Brown, Gorilla Monsoon, Jesse Ventura, Gordon Soley, and vodka. And because first of all, he worked by himself, I think, better than working with anybody they ever put.
And smoked the whole.
And Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon was our other one on the list. So that's just our take. But hey, now we're gonna get into some really hot ones that people are gonna argue and debate a lot, Myron.
Yep, because these are the ones that a blind person could tell who was coming to the ring.
Yeah,
because if this is Davion from Memphis, Tennessee, what are your top 5 entrance themes? Not entrances, not entrance music, entrance themes of all time. Because these people work the whole thing together. The song, the coming down to the ring, the lighting, it's all, oh man.
Yeah, I think what he meant, and I'm interpreting based on the question, so this is what I took, and this is kind of where I think people will vary. I thought he meant the song itself. Not because when he said not entrances, because I'll give you a spoiler here. Like, Steve Austin's not on the list. He's one of the greatest entrances of all time, but his theme song itself was just kind of like glass breaking and then dom boom 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 boom. I'm like, okay. I mean, it's cool and all, but I took it. That's why some of my choices will, I think, scream that it's more like the actual song, like the actual theme music.
Yes.
And that's why, look, feelings be damned about the wrestlers in even some of these. That's what's really messed up.
Yeah.
Like, I'll let you do the first one because you were just adamant that one had to be on the list.
Oh man, The Game, Triple H's The Game, performed by Motorhead, one of the greatest heavy metal bands of all time. The stories about Triple H and Lemmy, and him. He spoke at Lemmy's funeral. This is special to me because I went through a pretty tough divorce. God knows 15, 16 years ago, and every time I had to go to the lawyer, I'd get emotional, and I would play that song in the car on the way to the lawyer and get myself psyched up to do it, and it helped me. And it always meant something to me.
Okay. You can't have this type of list. This is kind of weird that you would be on my list, right? So Ric Flair's entrance theme, we actually had to do freaking research to find out.
We know it by heart.
Yeah, but it's called Dawn. It's a section of something that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce because I would butcher it. And it's by Richard Strauss. It's also Sprach Zarathustra. Something to that effect.
That's the Thrustra is why it's Flair's song.
Exactly. We know we probably butchered that, and I apologize, but you know what I'm talking about. It's basically from 2001: A Space Odyssey, right?
Yes.
That's what kind of thing. So that's I don't think you could have entrance music without that being on the list.
No,
that's just my take.
No.
So.
And as a kid, when you heard "Real American," I am a real American, fight for the rights of every man. And here comes Hulk Hogan running down to save somebody or running down to take out the evil heels. You were proud to be an American then. Okay? You felt good about yourself because the good guys were winning. And, this was a weird time in our country with nuclear menace all the time, but when Hulk Hogan's music hit, everything was all right. Loved it.
Now I'm going to pick one this is what's funny. This is because that was the preface of be damned what you think about the guy now. But I said This one is be damned what you think, because I always say CM Punk, everybody gives me grief because I say he's overrated. I'm not saying he's not good. But, dude, I love his freaking entrance music. I've always loved the song. I love the song before it was his entrance music. That's my justification. I was a big fan of Living Color and the Cult of Person. Anyway, so CM Punk, man, I mean, it's just got the hell of a riff when it starts. I mean, it's just got the whole vibe. It gets everybody fired up, But, Cult of Personality by Living Color, hands down, to me, it's one of the best entrances.
And we go to Black Sabbath now. Another heavy metal band with Iron Man. Jeter uses it here. And when it hits, he's coming out. But when the Road Warriors used it. Whole arenas knew who was coming out.
They did New Jack's gimmick before New Jack. They would come to the ring, like the music wouldn't even stop playing. They would destroy the opponents would be destroyed, and like nobody likes their ass beat to a soundtrack.
Nope.
But with in their early days, like they would literally would squash teams while their theme was still playing. Like they wouldn't even it was just like boom and they were done. I was like, that was always awesome to me. But nobody loves good ass beating. That's just funny to me. But
yes, but if you're gonna get your ass beat, why don't you get your ass shaved first?
Well,
with our friends at
Manscaped.
Whoa! Personal foul.
What the feezy?
You can't use a beard trimmer below the 50-yard line. This is the waterproof lawnmower 4.0 by Manscaped.
What's the difference?
It's got new skin-safe technology to help reduce cuts and nicks. It's powerful, yet gentle, just like me.
Dog, I appreciate you. Boop. Hey, watch out. I'm not ticklish. Get yours at manscaped.com.
That's right, man. Check out in the show notes. We got a link there for our friends over at Manscaped. Make sure you click on that link. Help support the show. We always greatly appreciate it. But you thought those were tough, Myron. Yes. You thought those questions were tough. Now the really hard questions were coming.
Well, we had to redefine these. This one.
Yeah. Well, this particular question we did, yes.
Because there were so many. And 90% of... Okay, sorry. Evan from Highland, Washington asked, what are your top 3 movies starring a wrestler of all time? Well, he didn't really ask that question. He asked what were your top 3 wrestling movies. The problem is, most wrestling movies are documentaries.
Right. And that's my fault. I argued that. I said, it's not a movie, it's a documentary. Like, Beyond the Mat's a documentary. Jake the Snake's a documentary. Blah, blah, blah. You just keep, it was insert doc. And I'm like, okay, that's not a movie.
So we changed your story, Evan, your whole question a little bit. These are starring wrestlers in a prominent role, our favorites.
And I'm going to throw a keynote in here as well, Myron. Because here's the thing. I saw things like Waterboy on people's list, because Big Show was in it. Grandma's Boy, because Kevin Nash was a mover in the movie. And I'm like, wait, I'm not. Punisher was on people's list. And I'm like,
Dolph Lundgren Punisher, the bad. What did Dolph Lundgren?
No, it was the one with Thomas Jane as the Punisher.
Oh,
Kevin Nash plays one of the big guys who comes to kill him. And he's like, but he's in it for a few minutes. I'm like, no. We were talking about movies that actually had actors with like substantial roles. Now, the sleeper I didn't put on the list, which I want to punch myself in the head for, is of course Roadhouse with Terry Funk in it.
Oh yeah,
that's a whole other
shit.
If we had 5, because I'm gonna throw in No Holds Barred, and I'm gonna throw in Roadhouse. But that's a joke there. Those were just 2 others that we didn't get into. But let's just
are they going to have a wrestler in the remake of Roadhouse?
It's not a wrestler. It's Conor McGregor. And Jake Gyllenhaal is the Patrick Swayze character.
Jake Gyllenhaal could not carry Patrick Swayze's.
Roadhouse shouldn't be remade. It's a classic. It's a cinema classic and should not be touched. But I digress. Anyway, so what is our
favorite movie? One of my favorite movies of all time, They Live, starring Roddy Piper. A cutting edge science fiction movie that probably cost about $45 to make. Classic.
It's a good movie.
It's a great movie. It's hard to watch today.
No, it's not. It ages very well, in my opinion. Listen,
if you can get past the first part, it does.
It's a cult classic. I will give you that. And you have to be into, there's lots.
And I bought the Funkos. Okay, that movie really changed me. The Funkos, the Pops. The little.
You said Flunko.
Shit.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have brain damage. I love that movie. It's just one of those things you see as a kid, and those ideas stay in your head. And it has the greatest movie line of all time, in my opinion.
I agree with you.
I'm here to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum.
Yep.
Also, an amazing fight scene with the other dude, the black dude that was the other hero.
They fought in the alley. Now, this is probably not PC. I don't do this often. But did you know that that fight scene would go on to inspire the fight in South Park between Timmy and Jimmy?
Yes.
It is almost it's almost move for move. So that is classic. I wasn't gonna go there. I was gonna dodge that as much as possible. That's why I said the fight scene between Timmy and Jimmy. But yeah, They Live rocks, still was good. I would, argue with anybody. I think the obvious choice everybody's going to say, like, of all things, and it's funny, when we're making the list, I literally, it just popped into my head. Ernest the Cat Miller is in The Wrestler. I was like, that's, but there's lots of wrestlers.
Proud owner of the Tap Top Wrestling Podcast shirt.
Yeah. So.
Ernest Miller.
Yeah, The Wrestler.
Super nice guy.
How many, when you have to go through that movie, there's so many wrestlers in it, obviously. But I think that's by default, do you think most fans would throw that as the movie?
Well, they would throw that in there, yes, as their favorite wrestling movie of all time. But
now, if you're asking me, hey, hold on now, I would argue with you. If it's wrestling movies, I might agree with you, because that was where we struggled. Because I'm like, as far as a wrestling movie goes, it's probably the best one.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say that because Ernest the Cat Miller is the proud owner of a Top Top Wrestling Podcast shirt.
True. Now we'll come to my favorite, Princess Bride, because Andre in that movie was outstanding. And if you want to talk about how much of a human being he was, there's a biography about him where they actually interview people that start, like Billy Crystal, and then in that movie with him, and about how much pain he was in, and he still, he did that movie, and I was like, oh, love Princess Bride. Here's the funny thing, it's one of my favorite movies, irrelevant of wrestling. So. Our three, because we made jokes, we threw those other couple in there, but Princess Bride, They Live, and The Wrestler are probably our three. And again, if you want to throw Roadhouse in there, I'm all for that. Terry Funk, but that's just me.
God, Terry Funk is an American treasure.
Yes, he is. Now, Myron, the nitty gritty, right up your alley. And here's the thing. It's right up your alley, but I think I might have played more of these as a kid. That's the funny
Probably because you probably got to arcades more, because we had to drive huge amounts of time to get to town with an arcade. So Kenny from Irving, Texas, what are your top 3 wrestling games of all time? And some of these games are home games. Some of these games are arcade games. But nothing was cooler than WF WrestleFest. Because that was like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game and the X-Men game, where you had all the controllers and all your friends could get around and you could play. Oh, those were the days.
Here's what people sleep on. Like, the gameplay on that was pretty freaking good.
Yes.
And we would do, man. I remember just like funneling quarters into that freaking game over at the arcade. But it's, look, to me, it's hard pressed to make these lists without the old arcade games, like stand-up arcade. Like, to the point, like, and here's what's crazy. I've even got Rachel bent on, like, we really want one of those for our basement.
Oh.
Like, one of the multicades, like one of the big arcades. The problem is Nick has a, taste when he's going to get one of those. It's like, I need one that's 4 controller, 4-player, because I want to get, NBA Jam, and I want to get NFL Blitz, and I want to get WrestleFest, and I want to get the Turtles and the X-Men game. I want the 4-player games.
Oh yeah,
that's the problem. But not everything on our list, not everything on there was our the big arcade machine.
Yeah.
Arguably, and here's the crazy thing: I was working at EB Games at the time when No Mercy came out. WWE No Mercy, N64. N64, look, for one, I absolutely was not the biggest fan of the controller.
That took a while to get used to that. And I don't think I ever really got as comfortable as that I did with other controllers. It was It was weird, man.
Yeah.
It had that stick right in the center, and it had 3 holes.
Yeah. But man, I'm telling you, it has been 20 years. I'm trying to think. I mean, it's more, to be honest with you, I think. But because I was 99, 2000. Yeah, it's been over 20 years since No Mercy was released, and I still don't know if they've actually made a wrestling game that played better.
I wonder if they got that out on the Switch.
Maybe you'd have to look.
Because I would love, because Casey's got her Switch. I would love to
try that with like a regular looking controller.
Yeah.
So that's to me, and I know people argue other games. This is like here. I knew this one was the one I figured more people would argue and debate than anything.
Well, this is my first wrestling game I ever played.
Yeah. Well, no, I meant like the category, the video games question. Yeah. Because, everybody goes like, oh, this was my childhood, this was my favorite. And so I understand that. And I'm not saying they're wrong, but you are. But then our last one, yes, which was
Pro Wrestling for the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yep.
Do you remember how bad your fingers hurt when you'd be playing that old controller? You would stop playing and your thumbs would have indentations on them. God, it was uncomfortable as hell to play on that controller, but we just smashed the shit out of those buttons. Oh my God, that game was
45 of this show, Myron. Do you remember playing track and field on that controller?
That was the worst.
You had to put the controller on the floor because you had to hit A, B, A, B, A, B. So you were sitting there with your fingers like this.
Yes, you'd have it on like a table or something. And
exactly. But the wrestling game was all about timing. I mean, and some of like Starman, by the way, was the best character to play, and I tell people that all the time. And when people are like, there's a whole generation of people listening and watching right now who have no idea what we're talking about. Because when we say you just like do pro wrestling, just sounds like it's because they didn't have like named wrestlers. It literally was like created, Fighter Hayabusa and Starman and like Piranha, like literally like all these made up characters. And but it was still like
no licensing.
No licensing, just and I used to remember beating so many guys on that game by count out. Like it was just the easiest way. Like get them out on the floor, suplex. 9, jump back in the ring. 10, you win. Ding, ding, ding. And it was like somebody's like, that sucks. You're cheating. I'm like, why? I won. It's a count out.
I'm a heel.
Was it for a title? It don't matter. A win's a win, baby. And some people forget that to this day, man. I always tell people, just get the win, baby. It's all that matters. But yeah, man. So that's our list again on the wrestling games. Our favorite 3: WrestleFest at the arcade, Pro Wrestling on the NES, and WWE No Mercy for the N64. And again, I honestly thought that would probably get the most debate and the most argument. Send all your arguments to tappedoutpod@gmail.com. I will gladly filter those and go through them and take a seat and see if anything. If you make a case to change my mind, I'll let you know. But the odds are you probably won't. So, but we appreciate everybody who's watching, listening, all that good stuff.
Yes.
So if you are, and you're watching us on our YouTube channel, make sure we always tell you, man, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, that little bell, right there with every time when we put a new show up or something, it'll go ding, it'll let you know. But if you're a podcast listener, make sure you're subscribing, same exact reason. You don't want to miss anything. So if you're subscribing, it just goes whoop. It'll come to your feed every single time, whether that's on Apple Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. Everywhere there's podcasts played, we're probably there. If you listen to your podcast somewhere and we're not on it, let me know. That's all I ask. But make sure you leave them that 5-star rating review as well if you feel so inclined. We would greatly appreciate it, man.
I had a guy come up to me Sunday at a show. And by the way, folks, if you see me at a show, come up and say hello.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that. Recognize me, make me feel like a star. I love it. But a guy came up and says, where can I catch your show? And my answer was like, where can't you catch our show? Okay. You watch it on YouTube. You'll see a link on Facebook to watch it on YouTube. It's on every single podcast platform there is.
So I'm aware of.
Then this man has been doing research on that for 6 years on where to sit. And we have the greatest podcast server, Lipson, also a sometime sponsor. They put our show everywhere. And you can't turn on your phone without having access to us in some place. Multiple apps access to us. Everybody's got access to YouTube. If you just want to sit down and watch my fat ass gesture and gesticulate, watch me on YouTube. But you can find us anywhere there's anyone talking about anything.
Exactly. Before we get out of here, I know we had this. By the way, this show was fun. Like, this was a cool show. I'm glad we caught up on the mailbag on these questions. If you send these questions in, like I said, I told you, we promised. We try to get to them. And I was like, Myron, we have got to get some of these questions. And, listen, there's a lot of stuff going on in the wrestling world. And not every day, a couple times a week, because I don't want to say every day, because some weeks I do it every day. Sometimes, some weeks it's every couple. Because here's my take: I will, on the daily mind dumps that are behind the paywall, wherever you may be a member at, right there on YouTube. If you're a member, I put them there. If something jumps out and it's a big enough news and I've got I've got an opinion that I want to share, that's where it's going to go. So sometimes these fun shows are always, to me, they're just cool to do. So
yeah.
But before we get out of here, I want to address what you just talked about.
Yes.
We don't normally cover, like an indie show per se on our regular show. But we went to District Championship Wrestling. I believe that's the exact thing what they're going to call it.
Yeah.
Ran in a nightclub, District Atlanta, downtown Atlanta, on a Sunday. And it might have been one of the more. Yeah, it was the middle of the day. It was 3 o'clock. The pre-show was 3. The show started at 4. I mean, it was kind of cool. But dude, like by 7, we were done. We're out of there. We're heading home. I mean, I was like, dude, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was probably some of the most entertaining, most entertaining show that we've been to. Like there's other great wrestling, but because here's the thing, it wasn't. Because the main event, let's start there, because this has got layers of it, and I'm not going to talk about it a lot because I want to do a little bit behind the paywall. The main event was QT Marshall and Anthony Ogogo versus JD Drake and Anthony Henry, the Workhorseman.
Yeah.
Phenomenal main event. That's an AEW match at this point, by the way, because they're all signed by AEW.
Yep.
So you'll see that match eventually, potentially, I guess, somewhere on AEW. And all 4 are super talented, and they put on and here's the thing, they put on a great TV match for us.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially what they gave you, was a TV match. Now, by the way, Ernest the Cat Miller entertained you and entertained the hell out of you the match prior.
Yes.
But, it's a lot of students from the Nightmare Factory. I mean, it's student filled. But my point was, to be a student or a school show,
yes,
the environment was great. The lighting, the music, the energy in the crowd, everything was really good. So it's something, in my opinion, I think you have to watch here in Atlanta. So I always tell people, keep an eye out on them. District Championship Wrestling. There will be more stuff, and I got a hint something's coming down the road that we'll probably do something with them.
I'm going to tell you, folks, they put me in a very relaxed atmosphere where I was chilling and hanging out. I don't go to discos or anything. I don't dance. But I was in a club, okay? Had a cocktail.
You said disco.
I'm
Grandpa.
1,000 years old. I trust me. I try. It takes every bit of my effort to keep up with things, the technology and stuff, but I do a good job of that. I still might miss out on dancing styles. But they had these balls that dropped from the ceiling and lit up all different stuff. They had a DJ, they had alcohol, comfortable seats. Okay? Comfortable fucking seats. Not that I had to worry about breaking one of those cheap little folding chairs shows have. Not that I had to, sit in a hard chair that would aggravate my hemorrhoids. I had a nice, soft, comfy couch to sit on. It was super cool. Super cool. Everybody got excited, even during intermissions, which, since it was a bar, they had more than one intermission.
Yeah.
People stayed talking and the place stayed loud. And so they set the perfect environment for professional wrestling.
Yeah, it was
in
good.
my opinion.
It was really good.
And then they put on a really good show. Yep. And I had fun.
Yeah, I would highly recommend them. Check them out. Give them a follow on social media. I know on Facebook it's District Championship Wrestling. Give them a look. And then, like I said, the next time, I think their next show, September 18th, I'll address that on one of my daily mind dumps. The date that they picked,
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, it is what it is. But you know, if you're so inclined, give them check them out September 18th back at the District Atlanta. So give them a follow on, like I said, on Facebook, and I'm sure the tickets will be on sale there. You can check them out as well. So, anything else before we get out of here, Myron? Anything you got to break or anything or?
No, I told everybody about Sonny's boyfriend and that and no, I've that's all I had to talk about.
Well, man, that's everything I got to do as well. So what's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing, you've got nothing. What time is it?
It's time to tap out.